Today we will cover a key chapter in Kazakhstan's history, focusing on the Alash movement, the symbolic struggle for cultural and political independence during the Soviet era. Despite their originality, the leaders of this movement were not rehabilitated in 1950s and 1960s. Understanding the reasons for this can give us valuable information about Soviet strategies for leadership of various segments of the population and suppression of nationalist movements. This research not only reveals past injustices but also enriches our understanding of current cultural revival movements in Kazakhstan. By examining the Alash movement and the Soviet reaction, we seek to eliminate the complex interplay between political power and cultural identity, them that remains deeply relevant today.
First statement. The Soviet government's harsh policies towards any form of opposition, especially nationalist movements like Alash, were part of a wider strategy to consolidate control and prevent challenges to central authority. Evidence. NKVD records often exaggerated the presence of anti-revolutionary activity as a justification for harsh measures. In Kazakhstan, for example, numerous groups were unfairly labeled as threats, leading to widespread oppression. The labeling of nationalistic movements as threats was not random, but a strategic tactic to instill fear and discourage aspirations for independence. This approach was consistently applied in various Soviet republics, reflecting a systematic fear of fragmentation.
The suppression of the Alash movement. The intellectual leaders of the Alash movement were specifically targeted in order to dismantle the foundations that could foster strong national identity. The evidence is leaders such as Alekhan Bukikhanov and Ahmed Batursunov were arrested and executed, significantly impacting Kazakh intellectual and political life. This repression aimed to eliminate their influence and ensure that any traces of nationalist sentiment would not survive. Their strategic suppression went beyond mere political control. It attempted to erase a cultural memory and shape Kazakh identity in accordance with Soviet ideologies. The consequences of this approach were significant, leaving a leadership void and a fragmented cultural heritage that took decades to recover.
The lack of rehabilitation for Alash movement leaders was a deliberate Soviet strategy to erase their legacy and suppress any resurgence of Kazakh nationalism. Figures like Alekhan Bukikhanov and Ahmed Batursunov were targeted to dismantle the foundations of a strong national identity. This approach was a part of a broader tactic to maintain control by labeling nationalist movements as threats, instilling fear and discouraging independence aspirations across various Soviet republics. The suppression extended beyond political repression to erasing cultural memory, reshaping Kazakh identity to fit Soviet ideologies. The arrest and execution of Alash leaders created a leadership void, disrupting the preservation of cultural and intellectual heritage, and leaving long-lasting impacts on Kazakh society. The Soviet policy of non-rehabilitation aimed to prevent any nationalist revival by eliminating influential symbols of Kazakh identity. This suppression left deep scars but also set the stage for modern cultural revival movements in Kazakhstan. The Alash leaders' legacy continues to inspire national pride and resilience, reflecting the enduring spirit of Kazakh people against historical injustices.